Welcome to the Bloomingdale Public Library's program on Basic Video Editing on PCs. There are multiple free software options available for PC, but in this video we'll be using Shotcut. Shotcut is a free, open source, cross-platform video editor that's available for Mac, Linux, and Windows. It receives continual regular upgrades from a community of enthusiastic and dedicated developers. Basics and even many advanced aspects of video editing are now accessible to everyone thanks to an abundance of digital video editors that are relatively easy to use and can run on relatively lightweight home computers. Best of all, many of these editing tools are free and a number of them are open source like Shotcut. In this guide we will learn basics of video editing using one particular open source software tool, Shotcut, which is available for free download at shotcut.org. Originally written for Linux, Shotcut now runs equally well on Windows and Mac OS. While there are other free editors, often they're really just the free or teaser versions of commercial or paid software. This would include video editing tools like Lightworks, DaVinci Resolve, HitFilm Express, Avid, and others. In every such case, the quote-unquote free version offers some incentive to upgrade to the paid version. Typically this means restrictions on the features that you would like to use, like for example a range of exporting options or the mandatory inclusion of a brand watermark. Because Shotcut is open source, their tools are as full-featured as possible from the start with no motivation to force an upgrade. Another good reason to use Shotcut is that it is very lightweight, so meaning when we download this program like we're going to do right now, so we'll go ahead and click the download and it takes us to shotcut.org, download. We'll go ahead and download from Windows Installer, and by default you'll get this pop-up and it is Shotcut. You can see that here. It's going to be giving us the 64-bit version. We'll go ahead and press save. And right now we're saving that file, and as you can see the download is happening rather fast, and that is because it is very lightweight. Whereas a lot of these professional video editing programs take up a lot more hard disk space, this free open source software is not very heavy on resource needs. So go ahead and press agree. If you want to read through that, go ahead and do so. You just kind of scroll down here and just make sure you're aware of the license agreement, and you decide where you want to install Shotcut, and you see that you have enough space. It's requiring 313 megabytes altogether. We do have plenty of space, so we'll go ahead and press next, and we can create some options here. I'd like to have a desktop shortcut. Select install. It may take a minute or two, but after the installation process you shall be able to open the program. And as you can see, we do have Shotcut here. Go ahead and select that. Let's open it for the first time. When you open Shotcut for the first time, you may be surprised at how little you actually see by way of interface or controls. Unlike other models, the Shotcut team has a preference for beginning with a very uncluttered interface and letting you choose panels from there as you need them. This also means that Shotcut opens very quickly compared to most editing and authoring tools of any complexity, and it consumes a minimum of system resources until it needs them. So don't be put off by all the blank space. The toolbar icons at the top will let you open all the window panels you need as you need them. So let's take a look at each of these panels in turn, taking them from left to right as their icons appear in the toolbar above. So if you see a blank UI here, there's nothing here, don't worry about it. We'll make some adjustments if we need to. But let's go ahead and start with the open file here, the open file icon. This control opens a standard dialog allowing you to browse to and choose a file to open. What happens next depends on what kind of file you open. As with most media editors, Shotcut will save a project in progress in its own proprietary project format. In this case, we'll find one here, As you can see, Shotcut will have a desktop icon for their projects, and it is .mlt. We'll go ahead and select that. And if you haven't moved all of your video files like I have, you won't get this pop-up message, but I'll go ahead and press OK anyway. And what will happen is the relevant panels will appear. So right here we have the timeline where we were doing all of our edits for that particular project, and you can see that there's audio as well. But let's go ahead and close that out. So if we were going back to the open file icon, let's say if we were going to open this file here, it's breakfast.mp4, and it's an old video. As you can see, it automatically starts playing in the source window here, and you can utilize any type of video format like .wmv or .mov or .mp4 in this case. Just automatically begins playing in that source window. Notice that the timeline panel at the bottom is now open too and displaying its controls, but nothing is populated down here yet. As we are not yet ready to do any editing with this video at this stage, Shotcut is just playing it for us to evaluate as a potential source to edit it. We would need to add it to the playlist and from there add it to the timeline. As with many editing and authoring tools, to save in Shotcut is not the same thing as to export. Saving here means saving your currently open Shotcut project in its entirety with whatever assets are currently included and whatever panels are open. So you'll be prompted for location and project name. In this case, we have it set already to where we want it, so I'll just select this Shotcut project. It'll tell me basically Shotcut project.mlt already exists. Do you want to replace it? I will say yes. The resulting .mlt file can only be open in Shotcut again, not in other software. Any sort of complex editing project is probably not going to be completed in a single session, so this is a very useful feature. But even if you think you are finished with your edited video, we would always recommend saving or resaving the project itself so that you can come back and make further changes if necessary. The next icon here opens the Properties panel, which allows for the inspection and in some cases the alteration of a wide range of properties pertaining to the selected asset. For this panel to be populated, of course, you need to have some assets selected, either as an item in the playlist or as a track in the timeline. And in this case below, we have the property values of the breakfast.mp4 video that was playing in the source window. So you can take a look at details of this video. You can see that the resolution is 3840 by 2160. You can see that the frame rates are set here. You can see the format and just a variety of different things here. The next toolbar icon we have is Recent. This toolbar button opens the Recent panel down here, which is simply a clickable list of all the files you've recently opened and edited in Shotcut. My current list has three different projects going. Let's go ahead and exit out of the Recent panel there, and let's go over to the playlist icon. And this is one of the most important panels in Shotcut along with the timeline. Playlist is essentially the clickable list of all assets that have been added to the project. So let's go ahead and move on over to timeline. As you can see, it's already there, so when you click on it, well, it's going to be there because we already have a project ongoing. So since we don't have anything in the playlist already, let's go ahead and add some clips. So as you can see here at the bottom, there's a plus sign, there's a minus, and there's an update, and there's a few other things here. For now, we're just going to work with the plus sign. And as you can see by there, we've added the breakfast clip. Now, as we were mentioning, the playlist is one of the most important panels in Shotcut along with the timeline. Playlist is essentially the clickable list of all assets that have been added to the project from manipulation, with this manipulation happening largely on the timeline panel. though also through changing some properties, which we used in this icon. And I'd like to add some more items to this playlist. Just go ahead and press plus there. We have breakfast, we have farming, there's a farming clip. I'm going to open the rest of these, and I'm actually going to just open them all. And there you are. We have all of these clips here in the playlist now. And it's automatically playing one of the files, the next one that was in the playlist, Mountain and Sea. And let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. Double click on it and we can see a preview of the video, just to make sure that all these videos are the ones that we want to utilize in this project. Now we can always save our progress, as we just did now. And when you have these thumbnails here, and when you can see that we have 5 different items in the playlist, what you can see here with information is the number, and then some thumbnails, the name of the clip. The first one selected and thus highlighted in blue. That item is an MP4 file that we saw above earlier, now added to the playlist by way of the plus button on the lower right, which we did earlier, which adds any item displayed in source to the playlist, which is what we saw. So here we can see a major reason why video files open in Shotcut are played in the source window but not automatically added to the playlist, as one might expect. The assumption is that many video files open here will be raw footage, which we will want to review and then decide exactly what, if any, of that footage we actually wanted to import, manipulate, and ultimately save as some new file. We might want to use most of the raw video but not the first and or few final seconds. We might just want to use one or more short segments and discard the rest. And once we move a clip to the timeline, we can make further, more fine-grained choices about what we want to leave in and edit out in the workspace. But defining one or more clips from the source is our first opportunity to do this, and again can save a lot of CPU by not forcing Shotcut to load an entire raw video file into fine resolution editing memory. So now that we have these clips in the playlist, we can go ahead and double click any of them to have them display in the source window. And I'm able to change the start and end points of the stage at this stage as well. So if you go over to this area here, you can select and drag it, and you can also drag it from the end and from the front there, and then it'll just play that part. If we were to add it to the timeline, and so let's go ahead and preview that now. Of course, we can also just add the entire video in here as well from the playlist, and from here you can adjust. Let's go ahead and exit that out, or excuse me, delete that one, and we can just adjust from the timeline itself. We noted above with undo, redo that Shotcut allows you to undo and redo a potentially endless stack of actions within the current session. The history panel here, this icon, gives you direct access to that stack. In the current session, I have simply added certain items to the playlist, but any filters added to a playlist item or edits made in a track in timeline would be listed here as well. So go ahead and close this out. And then there's filters. The filters panel is another important control area in Shotcut, but one with a complex enough workflow that we will not try to address comprehensively in this overview. Essentially, filters represents a very wide collection of effects that we can apply to items we've selected in the playlist. But just to give you some sense of what kind of filters there are, we can just go ahead and press the plus sign and we'll see a few favorites. There's a filter that allows you to change and adjust the brightness, color grading, contrast. You can adjust audio options for that particular video. You can change the size, position, and you can make it rotate, and you can add text. but we'll go ahead and just close that out for now. We'll go over export towards the end, but for now let's go over the timeline, which is arguably the single most important panel in the Shotcut UI and where you will likely spend the most working time. The timeline panel is placed near the end of the toolbar button sequence because that is a logical place in the workflow of editing or crafting a video. As we've seen, a video file must be opened as a potential source, then added to the playlist, which might more appropriately be considered the library for this project, rather than a playlist in the usual sense, because it is not meant to imply linear sequencing of its elements. Linear sequencing as well as synchronization and mixing of different tracks is instead the job of the timeline. When open, the timeline panel displays its own array of button controls, you can see here. Taken from the left to right, menu, which displays a menu of additional actions including adding video and audio tracks and adjusting their visual presentation in the Shotcut timeline. Video tracks can contain audio as well and will display the audio waveform, but audio tracks can only contain audio waveforms. Then we have, let's go ahead and click out of that. We have cut here. It cuts the currently selected video or audio track. So if I were to just go ahead and select this and press cut, you see that it goes away. I'll go ahead and press undo here because I want to keep it. But it cuts the currently selected video or audio track and ripple deletes it, meaning that any additional track segment to the right of the cut segment shifts to the left, leaving no gap in the timeline while the cut segment itself is copied to the clipboard. So we'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. So if I were to select this and then cut, you can see that the next video or in the timeline shifts over to the beginning. The next icon here is, if we were to click this, it is copy. You can copy the current clip to the source player. Copies the currently selected track, which we have here as the mountain MP4, and it copies it to the clipboard, but without deleting it from its current position. And if we want it to, let's say, add it over here, we can paste, which is the next icon, and you see that we have the original video at the very beginning of the timeline, and it reappears at the end because we use the paste icon here. The next button here is Append, which is the plus sign here. Appends the currently selected playlist item or copied track segment to the end of the current track. So there it is. Pen appends the currently selected playlist item, which was mountain. So when I selected saline, actually because I had copied mountain, we got it a few times here. So I'll just go ahead and use the next button here, ripple delete, which removes the current clip. And as you can see in here, it says shifting following clips to the left if there were any that were following. I'm going to go ahead and use this button one more time to get rid of the additional mountain file there. For us to go ahead and copy the saline and then to append it to the end, so it looks like it just doubles over here. And when that one ends, it restarts again. Lift removes and copies to clipboard the currently selected track segment without shifting the position of any other segments in this track. Unlike cut or ripple delete, this operation leaves a gap in the current track, but keeps it synchronized with any other tracks in the project. Overwrite pastes the copied material at the point of the cursor in the currently selected track, overriding any material that is currently in that location, and like lift, preserving the overall position of the track in relation to other tracks. Split at Playhead creates a single cut or split at the current point of the cursor, which will also be the Playhead location. The first split divides a track into two, and additional splits create additional segments. And these segments can then be cut, copied, pasted, etc. And as they now have separate properties, can also have filters applied to them. Toggle snapping turns snapping on or off. Snapping automatically creates a tight join between the two track segments you are manually sliding together. But when you have it off, you can overlap the two segments, which creates a crossfade or dissolve in the video or audio content. We'll play that out so you can see what that looks like. And scrub while dragging allows you to drag and play ahead across audio and video content in a track. And here, see the content and precisely where you are dragging the playhead will play at a normal speed. The playhead will play at normal speed when you hit the play control in the source video or hit the spacebar once. But scrubbing allows for more precise selection of points to edit in the video and or audio. You can also step the playhead forward and backward. The next toolbar icon here is the zoom timeline out. And then zoom timeline in. So currently in this timeline we have two clips. We have the mountain sea clip and we have the sailing clip. I'm going to add another clip. I'll add the breakfast clip, which we saw earlier. We'll just go ahead and add it to the end. And I'm going to add the farming clip, which, let's see how that looks. There it is. Remember, we can delete that. We can preview it from the playlist. And as you see, it starts with the black screen. What I'd like to do is cut that part out. And so whenever I actually add that in to the timeline, we won't get the black portion of that video. So just go ahead and take a look at that. So when I select the timeline and see that the farming video no longer has the black screen that starts it, because we made that edit. So let's go ahead and keep going. We do have some more buttons here. It should already be clear the range of possibilities for manipulating material in the timeline is very wide and cannot be more than suggested in this overview. So right now in our timeline we have a few different clips, and you can see that there's there's only one transition at the moment. What I'd like to do is kind of drag a few of these in to create some more transitions. I'll just go ahead and delete this and delete that transition, and we'll make a new one. And I'm just dragging them in. I'm not actually making any fine editing here. I'm just creating a timeline. It's a bit under 25 seconds, and I want to show you the export option. And export, when you're ready to completely save, well actually let's go ahead and save right now. When your project is completed and you're ready to export, the final control button is right here in the main toolbar. We'll go ahead and select it now. And as we have seen, save will simply save the entire project in its current state in the proprietary Shotcut project file format. If we want to render our edited creation in a general purpose video format playable on other devices, we will need to use export at this point. The export button opens a panel right here we see that allows us to choose among a very wide variety of video file formats, and then to further specify a range of properties or options within that format. And once we've made these choices or simply accepted Shotcut's defaults, we can then choose a saving location and then file name. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and export file. We'll use the defaults, and it gives us an option here to save it to where we want to place it. I'll place it in SC project, and we'll name it Shotcut project and save. Now here we see jobs, which is this icon, and we have this new panel here, and you can see that the progress is at 36 and going forward. So this does take a little time, but it shouldn't take too long, depending on the length and complexity of the project. It could be a lot longer, but it's because it's only about 25 seconds, it won't take too long, because we didn't do too much editing to the files. We did a few transitions and maybe a few cuts, but now the project is complete. You see the green object there, and what we can do is play it back by double clicking it, and you see it here in the source window, and it's just going to play it back for us with all the transitions that we created in this timeline, and it's looking pretty good. It did record the end part because it's located here as well. Now you can always cut out that part. I didn't see that we had another clip at the end, so we have to actually wait. This little green area is basically no video playing at all, so that is part of the exported file. Now, one thing to mention, because we saved it in this particular folder, we do have it available here, Shotcut project. We could play it in another program to see the results. And that is our basic video editing on PCs program for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us at the computer lab any day of the week. Also, a few extra resources to consider. If you go to Shotcut's website and you look at tutorials, there are a few video tutorials available for you to view that go more in depth into what Shotcut can do. But otherwise, thank you for joining us today, and have a great day.